Hello everyone, and welcome to my first ever anime video. I know, right? A channel literally named after anime. This is the first one that I do. Wow, I'm so productive. Regardless, today we are going to talk about possibly the greatest fanfiction I've ever read on the internet. Good and Evil, written by Roxas Itsuka. Published on fanfiction.net, and possibly the greatest thing I've ever read. To be perfectly clear, this will be a purely review and analysis. I will not cover any of the actual plot storyline. If you would like to see the plot for this particular storyline, from the first chapter to the most recent chapter, please hit the like button to show your support. It's a lot. There's a lot of words. I think we're now at 164,000 words. It's a lot. 50 likes, and I will describe the full plot of the entire story with even small details added. So you can expect that to be a very, very long and detailed video. Let's get something clear before I get into this review. I usually don't like reading full-on storylines without visual representation. Similar to manga versus light novel debates, I would go to the manga almost always because there's always going to be more information to absorb and less likely for something to be lost in translation. I absolutely love the manga of My Hero Academia and Boku no Hero Academia. The anime is always doing the storytelling justice as well as sometimes surpassing the original in so many ways with the animation and voice acting. I am telling you these opinions because in my personal opinion, this fanfiction is possibly the greatest thing I've ever read and can literally keep my 50-second attention span busy for like hours and hours. Hours upon hours. I'm no joke. This fanfiction is so good I would even possibly compare it to the original in terms of storytelling and character development. This story does so much in terms of fleshing out characters that normally wouldn't even have relevancy in the main timeline that you get to know them even better than in the original. And while some of the things that happen in the story don't stick to the main points of the original, in my personal opinion, adding and giving more time to other characters that were just thrown at us in the main timeline with no real purpose other than to be a roadblock is awesome. It really feels like everyone in the story is important in some way. There are even some points in the story where minor characters have to face off against other even more minor characters, and even those people get flushed out. Even if it is just a little bit. It really just makes the whole story flow extremely well because you never know who's going to be important and who's just going to be a throwaway. Since, in both the original and in this fanfiction, IZUKU Midoriya is the main character he is talked about most, and obviously will get the most character development in both of these storylines. I do actually think that the current fanfiction is doing better with Izuku's character development, though they are very close. In the original, Izuku's goal is to gain powers from All Might, and hone those powers to become the greatest hero that everyone can look up to, and not ever feel threatened by anyone, by any villain, ever. And to give a very rough description without spoiling the story for you all, in this story he becomes a villain due to some circumstances, cough, like the video, cough, and helps the League in their efforts as well as to get revenge and take back his harsh reality of being quirkless. Oh, did I not mention that yet? Well, I guess it won't spoil much, but unlike most fanfiction out there, in this one, Izuku never gets powers. Yes, you heard that correctly. Throughout this entire story, he remains quirkless. He trains like a madman for months on end, nearly dying a couple times just to attain strength and get more powerful so he can no longer be called inferior. And he does hold his own in almost every situation he gets into. As stated before, this fanfiction really goes into depth with other characters, such as everyone's favorite asshole, Bakugo, the emo half-cold and half-hot coffee boy Shoto, every single one of the League of Villains, that means Katakuri, Toga, everyone. He goes into every single backstory. He goes into drama and relationships between each of the members and other heroes, as well as the rest of IZUKU's classmates of 1A. What I really enjoy is the League of Villains backstories, in which you get to really see what pushed each member to become a villain, and each of the team's inspirations and motivation to becoming a League member and villain in general. Normally, when you have the situation where backstories are being revealed and fleshed out, you could easily just have all the characters have a pretty similar narrative and motive. Just have some cheap, we're all here because we all have the same experiences type of deal. But this writer doesn't do that. No. He has backstories to every single character that is unique to each and every one that arrives onto the story. He crafts such a convincing story for each member that I've actually had to check several different times on Wikipedias and forums to make sure that these weren't legitimate backstories of the characters, and I just had some missed it in the original story. IZUKU also pretty much forces his ideals and opinions on others, similarly to the original anime and manga. However, in this version, he is extremely more aggressive in his ideals, and would most likely die for them. So when a character like IZUKU forces his ideals onto other characters in the story, and interacts with them, you can see these characters develop and change compared to the original story, where it kind of seems like the characters don't change even if they get character development, especially when the interactions happen with original characters. Just to let you guys know, original characters, or OCs, are writer-made fanfiction material, which means that there could be the writer could put himself in the story, but even though he's not actually there, or he could put a new character in a story where there wasn't that character before. So that is what an original character is. And this chapter or review part of this review will be part of explaining what happens with the original characters. The original characters in this fanfiction are actually really nice and really awesome to read through. Of course, these characters drastically change the storyline of a lot of the characters in the story. This writer not only writes the story and the characters how he wants, but he adds his own, and not only does it give the story more potential, but it genuinely gets me more interested in the series and these characters as well as the original ones. While some might see it as taboo to add characters to a pre-existing work and not just stick to the main storyline, I believe there is only so much you can do before it kind of just becomes a retelling of the original, which is kind of like plagiarism, basically. And while some of the original characters are kind of just callbacks to characters referenced in the manga and anime, I do think it's cool he doesn't just forget about them and finds a way to incorporate them into the story. A good example, without giving too much away, is how in the original, All Might references Toxic Chainsaw being the person who gave him the wound that started to kill him and weaken his powers. And in this story, the writer takes it as an opportunity and fits in this character into the story as a kind of boss character. And like I said, while this isn't technically an original character, it is still implemented into the story quite nicely. Now, as much as I've been praising this story and this fanfiction, it is not without issues or problems. I think the main problem with the story structure is that sometimes the chapters can be really fast-paced, and then other times it just feels like the story is kind of slogging and slowing down through material just to have a little extra backstory that sometimes, if not most of the time, isn't really necessary or even needed in the first place. Another small issue that may just be my issue is that there's a lot of incorrect grammar, punctuation, and spelling in a lot of these stories. This is a small, trivial problem if you can look past it, especially since the writer can just go in and edit the script afterward to make it correct. I don't know if the person who's writing this is a native English speaker or not. He is from France, so I cannot say if these are a regional, thing or not. But some mistakes are still there in some of the beginning chapters, and a lot of the time, a new chapter within the first 5 days will contain about 10 to 20 misspellings or grammar problems. Again, this is not a huge deal, but would surely help to fix before even posting. The next and last issue is actually about the original characters we were talking about earlier. While these characters can be awesome in many ways, they can also be a very, very big deterrent for people who want a full story or full fanfiction without any changes. A lot of the original characters have some seriously, like the ones he created, a lot of these characters have some seriously extreme racist and sexist opinions, ideals, and undertones, which can really make this story really dark, depressing, and feel like a suicidal type tone, and generally be off-putting for a lot of different viewers. So I would recommend, if you don't like dark themes and dark undertones, or evil type things where it seems like there's a lot of race and political type stuff going on, there's some sections that you probably want to skip. I would just consider skipping it. Anything that says atrocity under it, just kind of skip over it. So, with all that in mind, just as a quick recap, I am absolutely loving this fanfiction and storyline as a whole. If you are a fan of My Hero Academia or Boku no Hero Academia and anime in general, I highly recommend checking out the story. In my eyes, in my opinion, this is one of the greatest things I've ever read in a while, being that I basically check to see if it's updated every single morning when I get up, just so I can get my favorite story the day it comes out. I'm absolutely addicted to it. Literally. I want to remind everyone that while I didn't spoil much of anything in the story on this video, I tried to be as conservative with how much I was telling. I will do a recap of the entire plot up until the current chapter of this video that this video comes out at. So we're at chapter 34. So I would do a plot summary from all the way from chapter 1 to chapter 34, which is right now we're at 164,000 words or something like that. It's a lot. If this video has 50 likes, I'll do all of that, and I'll make it really detailed, and it'll probably be super long, and it'll probably take me 2 or 3 weeks to make. But if we hit 50 likes, I'll do it. I know I don't really have that big of an audience, but that would take a lot of work. So why not make you guys work for a little bit, For chapter 1 all the way to chapter 4, which is the current chapter, in full detail. That's what I'm promising. This has been a review for Good and Evil by Roxas Itsuka. I'm probably butchering that name, I'm sorry. And the links will be in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.